blurs
the one person moves and then the whole video's
Did you just say that you won't lose focus? So my role is pretty much the comic relief. I just make fun of things.
Keep him focused.
Rodney Dangerfield. So you were at a meeting, you said.
Oh, I was gonna say related to my wife. We were in a planning meeting, and she went on a trip with me to Ireland, and we were talking about the Irish distillery and all this kind of stuff. And she just happened to sit into the meeting. She's sitting there listening and stuff, and they're talking about the routes and things. So she starts asking questions. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like asking questions. She's all plugged in, She's been around a while, so she's very in tune with what's going on.
That's funny. My wife's in tune with credit card shopping.
Yeah,
that's what she's doing now. She's downstairs. She said, "How long are you going to be?" I'm like, "A couple hours."
That's going to cost you.
She's like, "Yeah, I'm not coming up. I won't be done by then."
There's some expensive stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like, what can you possibly buy for 2 hours?
Coffee table.
Oh, coffee table's like $10,000.
We were here when we were here 3 weeks ago. They were building the ones out of the Pappy barrels.
They do a pretty good job.
Yeah, you were here.
I was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, we have a bourbon barrel coffee table.
Oh, yeah.
It's a couple of Buffalo Trace bourbon barrels split with a 380-pound barnwood top.
I've got one with a glass top and put stuff down in there.
It actually came out awesome. It really did. It actually came out really awesome. But it's about 520 pounds in total.
So it'll never go anywhere.
Yeah, if mine was 520 pounds, I think it would be full of bourbon.
You haven't been to my house this week?
No.
Oh, yeah, it's massive. It's 42 by 80 is my coffee table.
But that is my plan. I am putting a barrel.
It's actually the size
It's
of
actually a table.
It's a dining table.
Yeah.
It's 21 inches tall.
It's a lot of coffee.
It's got 3 sofas around it. So
Yeah.
Good. That's for sure. All right. So when we start the podcast, I'm gonna play about a 45-second spot that plays, and then we just wait, and then we go into our theme song. Once the theme song is going, we introduce everybody and we get on with the podcast. Is there anything specifically that you were thinking that you wanted to, personally, like that you like to get out, as far as a message goes, answer anybody or any deal with anything that you heard that?
I think the message we already are planning to talk about is the expansion. So that's kind of the main thing. We get a lot of feedback that says we can't find our bourbon on the shelf. So I think that's good for people to know that we're hard at work expanding.
Well, you guys have done a great job in Ohio, because what used to be one case has been 2, and then sometimes there's even 3-4 cases, and so a lot more people
we want to talk about the 10 cases of Weller Green that show up at some stores, and then they have it for a whole week.
Yeah, good.
So
we can ship 4 times that, you're saying?
Yeah, actually, some of the brands you could ship 14 times that.
Yeah.
Still not that enough.
Yeah, but that's it's
honestly, it's genius marketing. Whoever your marketing gurus here that started like 10 or 12 years ago,
Yeah.
I want to hire those people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Harlan will tell you that it's not all just it's circumstance.
It's definitely not marketing.
Yeah, he's not trying.
It just happened to work out like that.
Yeah. I mean, and when you look at where you guys started, it's not like you are getting to that point, but you weren't pumping out like Brown Foreman or whatever. It was a little bit. You're a large distillery, but you're not one of the big, huge, giant conglomerates that are just making massive amounts of whiskey, right?
Well, it's all relative, but I think we're making more than we've ever made. But if you look at our production curve over the years, I mean, it's every year we've done this. We continue to do that, and we're not slowing down. And we're even with this expansion, we're already looking at the next. What do we do next? And so we're looking at land, distillery building, and
I will share with you my favorite quote from the last 2 weeks. I was sipping some old Red Family Cold with a good friend of mine who's the president of the Ohio region for PNC Bank.
Okay.
And I'm like, man, this is awesome. I can't believe you're sharing this. He goes, no. He goes, I got like 15 or 20 bottles.
Oh, yeah?
I'm like, really? I said, how does one guy get 15 or 20 bottles? He says, oh, I got all the Van Winkles. I'm like, he goes, yeah, you people that are buying this stuff for crazy money. He goes, I'll never pay more than $69.99 for a bottle. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure it hasn't been $69.99 in like 15 years.
All right.
He goes, I was buying it in the 80s and 90s, when nobody was buying it because I liked it. And he goes, I just stocked up on it.
Wow.
So he's never paid more than retail for a bottle, and
Pretty
he's
cool.
got a cabinet full of them. I mean, he's probably got 30 bottles.
He'll get a culture shock if he needs another one.
Yeah, and maybe he ought not to be sharing.
Yeah.
It's a similar story, but I was in Arizona at a place called AJ's, which is a high-end grocery store. And the lady come out, she was, I guess, the buyer for the store, and she said, oh, we can't get any more Pappy, I'm so mad. And then she's giving the sales guy the right act. She said, but while you're here, I'd like for you to sign the bottles I have. And so she goes in the back and brings out 2 full grocery carts of Pappy Van Winkle. It was like 100 bottles. I said,
Oh my God.
I said, do you know you have more bottles than anybody west of the Mississippi?
Yeah.
And she's complaining about it.
Well, she don't want to sell them. She just want
Yeah,
to
she
keep them.
had them in the back. That was another thing.
Now they're sold, so that got now that you signed, now they're signed.
Yeah.
Now that takes it up a little bit further.
Yeah, I
Right?
don't know.
This is Alan Bishop, head alchemist at Spirits of French Lick. Be on the lookout for our brand new bottled and bond Solomon Scott rye whiskey. Made from a mash composed of 65% rye, 35% corn, and 5% victory malt. This 5-year-old 100 proof rye whiskey is a throwback to early 1800s style rye whiskeys of the Ohio Valley. Named after the legendary Daisy Spring Mill distillery owner turned moonshiner Solomon Scott of Paoli, Indiana. Remember, drink responsibly and never drink and drive.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Yeah, she's probably charging 4 times MSRP for
Yeah, it's just. I mean, everything went a little bit nuts
Yeah, the
in the
bourbon
last
price.
4 or 5 years. When all of a sudden. But I'm hoping lately I've seen a little bit more of everything on the shelf. So
yeah, it's coming. I mean, we're, like I said, been making more every year. This expansion, like you said, won't really hit until 6 or 7 years from now.
right.
Yeah, it's
But
such a delayed payback.
but between then, we've been maxing out.
Yeah, you
So-
have been.
So, I mean, it'll definitely get better. I mean, we're still shipping it and, doing our best to be fair across the country because that is a big part of it. And
So other than the Pappy line, what is the most limited release that you do?
well, I guess the antique collection is pretty limited. We do some specialty things like in the experimental collection. We just did the launch of the latest Weller expansion,
Mm-hmm.
the Daniel Weller, and that was pretty
That's a cool
limited.
bottle.
Yeah, it's neat.
I really
And,
like that.
And we're just trying to connect the family story of the Weller label, and it's a good way for us to release some of these specialty experiments
Mhm.
under that wheat recipe, and we're getting excited about that. So we got a lot of fairly limited stuff, but I think that's what people sometimes get confused. They say, "Well, is this a craft distillery or is it a big? What is it?" And I say everything we do is craft.
Well,
You
yeah,
know,
I mean,
you know-
your Rock Hill Farm, everything. I mean,
You know,
you're
it's
not going to
correct.
go out and buy that
Mm.
sitting everywhere.
And I'd say
Or
if you
anywhere.
took
Or
the
anywhere.
tour, walked around and saw everything we did behind the scenes and all that, you're gonna at the end of the day you're gonna say, "Wow!" And we only charge $25 for a bottle. I mean, that's how can you do that? But that's all sheer volume, and we can be competitive with an 8-year-old bourbon, and it's some of the smaller guys can't do that because we have a lot of
You have the volume to do it.
They're paying $65.
$65
They're
or
paying $65 for the juice to put in the barrel,
right.
and then they have to sit on it for
That's
2
right.
years.
That is kind of the difference. But the thing is, we're not approached like a commodity. It's still a high quality bourbon.
Oh yeah.
So we're doing both the craft and the large
Yeah.
scale.
Well, you even look at some of the other people, the large people who weren't craft distilleries, for instance, Beam, and they basically put in the James B. Beam distillery to be more craft. so they can do
bring
the
people
experimental
in.
stuff that,
That's right.
and what, your wood finishing series, what's the name of it? The special,
Single oak or
yeah, the single.
Oh, yeah.
It's right
Yeah,
there.
right. I was gonna say, what's
Single,
behind me?
thank you.
Yes.
That series in itself is a part of what you guys have been doing for a while, and that is a crafty aspect of what you call almost a true craft. That's just not you're coming up, but then also you're learning from those.
Oh, yeah.
Correct, and
definitely.
which eventually then you can hopefully come up with products that you make a little bit more of.
And that, just like Ford or Chevrolet or anybody in any business, that you have to experiment and try things and
Sure.
put them in the wind tunnel and see what you think. And that's what we do through that experimental program we have. And,
If that's the case, what's your Etzel?
well, we've got plenty of them.
You just don't know about them, right?
Yeah.
Well, the truth on that is we actually bottle those up too, and we call them failed experiments, and we don't sell them, but we save them, and then we let people taste them to tell them how bad it is, because we want to learn from that too. And the bottle says failed experiment across it.
Nice.
So the next time we
you have
come,
one?
let's do a podcast on that.
Failed.
Wait, do you have a
Failed
high rye one?
experiments
Because
all
Jeff
the time.
particularly enjoys that.
But I guess there's so many different methods
shoot.
out there.
Well, I know.
Yeah,
Well,
let's get this going.
perfect example is we thought it was terrible. We labeled it failed experiment. We did a tasting. We had some writers there, and he tasted it. He said, "My gosh, this is awesome." I'm like, "Oh no, it's not awesome. It's bad." And he loved it. So
That's the great thing about whiskey. Everybody.
Does that mean?
What? Oh, about you? Yeah, yeah.
He gives everybody their nickname. He called me whiskey. So
Yeah,
I'm
because the great thing about it is you're our field experiment.
like, yeah.
Whoops. Open door and
You threw a
shut.
high fast one
You know
over
what?
the plate.
That might be the
Jeff
first time he
knocked that
actually
one
had a
out
good
the
one.
park.
Yeah,
No,
we
I
got
did.
you on that one.
I did, except now I'm in trouble.
I actually felt that a little, but not as badly as you would.
All right, I'm going to get it started so that that was great for for people on YouTube. They get a little extra. So Here we go.
Hey, Scotchy Bourbon Boys. This is Tiny to tell you about the new Dant Crossing. Dant Crossing is a one-of-a-kind destination to make lasting memories with family and friends. The pastoral campus is anchored by Log Still Distillery, where you can enjoy their truly outstanding Monks Road spirit. Enjoy world-class entertainment at their outdoor amphitheater, The Amp. Stay overnight at one of their unique lodging options. Host an unforgettable experience at their 18,000 square foot wedding and events venue, and enjoy acres of wooded walking trails and a 12-acre fishing lake. More attractions will open soon at Dant Crossing, including a fully functional private train depot and farm-to-table restaurant. For more information, go to www.dantcrossing.com.
Drinking bourbon, sipping on some scotch. We get a little wild, but it's sure fun to watch. We love what we do, we're drinking every brew. Man, we talk some shit, but we're telling the truth. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, raising some hell and making some noise. Yeah, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. We're here to have fun and we hope you enjoy. We're here to have fun, yeah.
All right, welcome back to another podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. We are almost fully represented here. And this is a special podcast from Buffalo Trace Distillery, where we are podcasting today with Harlan Wheatley. Welcome.
All right.
Thanks for being on, Harlan.
Yeah, thanks.
We got CT here, we got Whiskey, we got Roxy, and we got Andy. Andy's making his first, I don't know how much he's going to talk, but he's making his first appearance on our podcast. He basically he's been keeping us safe. That's his main job.
He's the bodyguard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, he's got security.
So Andy's new name should be Silent Bob.
Silent Andy. There you go. So I'm very excited about this podcast. Harlan and I podcasted, I believe it was in the October of 2021, which was, but that's a while ago, but, and that you guys were into starting the renovation, and we talked a little bit about that, but here we are in almost July of 2023, and the renovation, that part of the renovation that we were talking about is finished, and we're so excited, to get your take on how everything went.
Well, we were really excited because the whole idea was to be able to mimic the bourbon that we've been producing and continue to expand and make more. And we did a lot of work during the expansion. It was about $200 million to make sure that we didn't change anything. We measured the stills, we mimicked the plates and the trays and the flow rates and all the heights and all the things that we did, but we didn't really know until we started running it how it was going to work out. And we started the whole system up in January of 23, and we were extremely happy with the outcome, and came out to be exactly as planned and on track. And we have been making bourbon 7 days a week ever since then.
So they're just running full out both stills.
Both stills are running full out up to our fermentation capacity. So the latest and greatest expansion now, we've moved on to the third phase of our expansion, which is more fermentation. So now we have to put 8 more fermenters in and 2 more boilers. And when we get that phase done, then both stills will be running at full capacity.
Wow. And where are those going to go?
They're basically going to go outside because we're out of room.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've taken almost every tour you guys have offered, and I'm going.
Yeah. So we have to put them outside, and we'll be pumping them from the building across the street to our, stills. But
Wow.
So how much modernization have you guys done as far as have you given yourself more control to do the same thing?
Oh, for sure. One of the things we wanted to do is make sure we incorporated new technology. And so we're able to clean things better, more, we're managing our streams or processes better, and, definitely streamlining, more efficient. We put in a lot of controls and systems in place for us to be able to run better, smoother.
Yeah, and that's one thing that when we go to different distilleries and see people, there's a lot of people building distilleries right now, and you see all the choices that they do make, and what's out there as far as almost full automation it's crazy, like what kind of control. But I always felt that if you don't have somebody who's done it in the past and knows what he wants to do, that automation can be bad because it becomes more, vanilla.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody like yourself or some of the people in the industry and you give you that control, all of a sudden you're guaranteed one of your workers isn't going to screw up because it comes off exactly where you want it at the time, and it's not relying on stuff that can happen, you know what I mean, in a distillery.
Well, I'm one of the unusual individuals that was here before any automation. And one of the things we were real careful about was our predecessors, we've been doing this for 200 years. And a lot of the equipment when I started was put in the 30s, 1930s.
You look great for your age.
Yeah, so 100 years later, one of the things we wanted to make sure was we developed our automation around our process and not change the process to match automation. And that was a really important piece to our expansion, as we didn't change the process at all. In fact, we made it more stable, and then we just added automation to make sure.
Yeah,
That
and
was
like
a really important difference.
that's just like giving you a tool, like you said. It's like you can just make it more secure, more that everything that needs
Consistent is
to happen.
the key
Consistent
word.
is gonna. Yeah, it's the one. Thank you. He
Yeah.
threw that out there
Yeah.
for me. So one of the things we talked about, and the brands all have been branded. For instance, the different warehouses where your different brands come from and everything. And you talked about then you're working on constructing those warehouses with the same conditions. But when we were on tour, that was really cool that we found out about warehouse
HH.
Yeah,
HH, which is really cool. And but talk about what you did in there to make sure that what's happening in H is the same thing that's in HH.
Well, one of the things we did on all of our new expansion is we used metal clad, but we also spent the extra $1 million per warehouse, and we built 19 of them up on our farm to ensure that we can control the temperature. And then we installed floor heat, radiant floor heat, and dual zones so we can control the temperature throughout the warehouse. And that's really important for quality and consistency of the aging. And we wanted to match some of the conditions that we have down at the original warehouses, and we were able to do that. So it's exciting that we can do that based on what we're trying to
Well, yeah,
age
because
there.
and for people that aren't obviously here and don't realize it, I mean, you're talking about warehouse H sitting down here between buildings in a low area, and this new brick house is going to be up on the hill. So keeping them consistent between the two of them is like having one in Ohio and having one in Kentucky. I mean,
a little bit, we similar environment, but we do, again, for us, the nice thing is we can have a lot more control on what those barrels are seeing as far as the environment. And I think we made some improvements because it's more consistent with the floor heat and some of the fans and things that we can do to make
That was going to be one of my questions. It's funny because there are people that I don't know that anybody that's into bourbon isn't really aware of the expansions, the warehouses on top of the hills, and the fact that you could fill them as soon as you could build them.
Yeah.
I think that story is out there. But I've heard all kinds of people say, oh, well, they heated every floor and that way they can control humidity. And I'm like, the amount of technology that would have to go into one of those buildings to match not just temperature, but humidity, convection. Mm-hmm. There's a natural circulation in a large building that you would have to, the technology to just replicate the airflow has to be astounding. You said you spent an extra $1 million,
on insulation.
Just on insulation, yeah. So, what goes into a building that you have to take a building that's historic like Warehouse H? It's completely different than anything on the property. It's metal clad, it's got its own characteristics. Mm-hmm. It's leaky, from the sides. Yeah. And how do you match that in a brand new building that's filled full of insulation and technology? And
I think the secret is control and then ventilation and focus on what the barrel sees. Not so much the look of the warehouse. We did make them look good with some That's all. That was all just for look. But we did focus on what does the barrel see, and we wanted to make sure the heights and the air around it were the same, and the airflow. And some of it is designed just because you have to build the structure to make sure it withstands the weight of 59,500 pound barrels. It's a lot of weight. And,
that's just, and then, so I get that you have that control, and they were talking about how the prototype for the whole thing is warehouse age. So all the other rick houses or warehouses are all mimicking what's happening naturally at age.
It's not just age. We have warehouse L, the concrete floors that we have. Warehouse C is a really great warehouse for aging, extended ages because of the airflow of warehouse C. So we had to look at all the warehouses and make sure we're matching.
Oh, so did you build a couple extra with that control so that you can do, instead of trying to mirror everything, that you were like, well, what happens if I do this today or if I do that today, where you actually have control of?
Yeah. Well, we're in the early years, right? So we're learning as we go, and we are making adjustments as we go. So, how many windows do we need to open? What's the airflow need to be? And we have ventilation in the warehouses. So we're adjusting as well as we taste and test. And we also built our warehouse X, which is our experimental warehouse. And so that allows us to do exactly what you're talking about and vary, airflow and temp and humidity. And we actually varied sunlight because of the surface. We wanted to vary the surface temperature of barrels because we have 438 windows in every warehouse, all the new ones. And how does that barrel in front of the window act versus a barrel that's down the road? How's it going to act? Because it gets direct sunlight on the barrel. So we wanted to understand that. And it does make a difference because of the surface temperature.
Yeah,
One
that would
of the
make
unique
sense.
things is no barrels are rotated here at Buffalo Trace.
Well, the nice thing, if you look at these bottles, each one of these bottles are different taste profile. And if you rotated barrels, you're leaning more toward the same whiskey.
Mhm.
And so we want to have a good variety to pick from. It's like picking strawberries or whatever. You want to pick certain strawberries for certain markets probably. But, for us, we can take a Buffalo Trace recipe and age it 2 more years and get Eagle Rare. And so we want to be able to do that based on the taste profile of each one. And we can't do that if we rotated the barrels because we would get too much the same. We want it to be a little different.
So when you were, you're in a line of master distillers of what would you is whiskey greatness, okay? And you've been doing it for a long time, and you're still fairly young. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you.
For a master distiller,
Wait,
I don't feel that way, but that's good.
fairly young.
Fairly young.
That's like
Fairly-
saying you're kind of handsome.
Yeah.
What the hell?
anyways,
Yeah. Thanks. It's the first time somebody ever said you're fairly young.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a nice
Yeah,
way to
you're
put it.
Yeah.
young for a master distiller even now. I mean, there's and your experience. You've come along. What from when you started here, and you've done pretty much everything, right? And you've met so many people. I mean, you've in this industry and the people that know you, and just when we talk about you with other people, that
Mhm.
we only hear good things about you. You never hear that guy's a jerk or anything. You don't hear any of that. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, that's good.
But at the same time, what surprised you the most as far as the industry when you started and you were doing this to what you're doing now? What is there anything that just stuck out where it's just like, I can't believe this is happening?
Yeah, I think most people that have been paying attention are a little surprised that the bourbon industry expanded as fast as it did. We always wanted, back when I started, this place was a big distillery, used to be owned by Shinley, and Shinley was a big operation, and they saw the industry shrink. But so our capacity was always really big here, and we thought we'll never exceed capacity. We've got enough room to make all kinds of bourbon, and
Yeah.
someday I'd like to see 2 shifts. I'd like to see us, make a few extra barrels and so on. And that 2 shifts only happened about 12 years ago. And the reason I know that's when we started hiring more people. And so it happened a lot sooner. I wanted to do that before I retired. And now we're into 3+ shifts, around the clock, 7 days a week, and expanding like we talked about. And whoever thought we would have to expand this place with the size, we were already the largest single bourbon site in the world. And now we're definitely the biggest site in the world for making bourbon, and no plans to slow it down. So, but that part was a big surprise for sure. And it's a global product too. Anywhere you go, it's the same message. We could use more bourbon if we could get it.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to any country these days. Used to when I started, you'd have to explain what bourbon is. This is bourbon.
Yeah,
This is
different
how
from your whiskey.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's what kind of yeast do you use, and what's your recipe, and
Or they tell you.
or sometimes they tell me things. Yeah, that happened a couple times. But it's changed a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. You got anything, CT?
No, I mean, so like on that line there, do you see like the bourbon boom the way it's going? I mean, obviously in the United States, it's gone crazy, but we have really not capped into the global side of it. So what happens when the India market, for instance, wants more bourbon? Do you see that being as much of an issue? Like when you're planning the new site, you're doubling capacity, whatever. Is that a big part of it more than even the U.S. capacity?
So as busy as we have been, and all the things we've been doing, we still say we're just getting started.
Yeah, because you haven't touched that.
Which is
market.
craziness. I mean,
Yeah.
as busy and as much the things that we're doing. So we haven't really even touched the global market. I mean, we're definitely getting involved, right? We're seeding the market and working with distributors, and we've got a small sales team now.
Well, we talk to a lot, like Jeff and I know we do, especially with people on in our Facebook groups and stuff. And India is so big that they have a huge interest in it. And, I think that scotches and whiskeys, obviously have their place. I think people are really starting to get intrigued globally with the sweetness and the complexity that you can use bourbon in. Like, it works so well in so many drinks, not just drinking it straight.
Makes a great salad dressing too.
Salad dressing.
Yeah, that's right.
I can top that.
Yeah.
We did.
Oh, here we go.
So we did. We tried.
Cinnamon toast challenge.
We took E.H. Taylor small batch
Okay.
and substituted it for milk
Oh yeah.
On
in
cereal.
a cinnamon toast crunch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it by the end of breakfast you were in good shape? Obviously.
He doesn't remember.
Have you? So as a kid, because we probably
I drink
don't.
a lot of milk.
Yeah.
Sure.
So usually you get done with your cereal and your milk's in there and you drink it.
Yeah. Was that good?
I'm gonna plead the fifth. That was some of the hardest thing I ever did. That was a little odd,
Okay.
but the friend of mine, he liked it.
Okay.
But yeah. So there's
And
Yeah.
very, very sweet.
I'll just
There's
say
a lot
that.
of sugar.
yes.
Yeah, it's not often that when you finish your bowl of cereal you want a shot of milk, but
Right.
that definitely was the case.
But yeah, so it's complex all the way. It has some use all the way up through that.
Well, I think that's a lot of the secret, that the reason bourbon did expand the way it has is because of the flexibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the cocktails and the bartenders across the world are so creative, and some of these guys are turning out some awesome cocktails.
Yeah.
They absolutely
And
are.
you can make so many different drinks with these bourbons. And I think that's part of the reason it became popular is people were, at the time, people were very sensitive to what they're spending their money on, and they wanted something with a good, high quality, cocktail.
Well, if you turned it out back to 10 or 12 years ago, there was a big movement in the young people, and by young people I mean younger than us.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be you.
Thank you.
And there was this whole like retro kind of thing where everyone wanted the old stuff, right?
Right.
And I think that revitalized like the old fashioned and the Manhattan,
Yeah.
which is kind of a uniquely bourbon drink.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, parents are going out to dinner with their kid and they're ordering an old fashioned, and they're like, oh, let me try that. And that's and then it became popular again. And
It's easier to drink and get into it.
this is truly one of those bottom up stories, in my opinion, because the young people are really what revitalized the
Definitely.
cocktail.
Absolutely.
And then we as the parents have the resources, and we're like, well, I mean, sure, let's do this. And bourbon is, I mean, it's America's beverage.
Yes.
You know, it's uniquely American. It has to be made here. And I think that's some of the draw that we see from overseas.
And it's like Jeff says all the time, they want what they can't have. Everybody does. They want something that they can't go readily get their hands on. So it's like, okay, overseas, I'm sure so-and-so has a bottle of something, but very few people do.
Yeah.
So it's like, boy, how do we get that?
Well, and also when you're over there, wherever you are, and they're tasting their drink, and then you set this one beside it, and you taste that, and you think, wow, that one is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it stands up to any whiskey in the world.
Mhm.
It stands up, and that's the idea, to be able to compete. People always ask, who are your competitors? And our competitors are across the globe. We want to be able to compete with any whiskey on the market. And if they just taste them, it's okay to like both, but if you just taste them, you're going to like, I think you're going to like, what you end up with. And like I say, the flexibility of cocktails and all the other things. I don't know about cereal, but
Yeah.
Hey, I don't either.
yeah, Jello shots and Pappy and all that.
It does explain a little about Tony the Tiger, though.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. But what, I contend that you take your Buffalo Trace product, right? And it sells right around between $25, $30. And then you take the high end whiskeys, and let's just take, for instance, Old Fire Copper. And that is a very expensive bottle, and it's a special bottle. And people are like, well, that whiskey's not worth that price. But it's not always about the whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being able to have something that's very limited, that not a lot of people, there's not a lot made, and not a lot of people get to taste it or have it or obtain it. And that's where that kind of comes in. I don't think there's even $150 bottle compared to, Buffalo Trace. It's not $130 better tasting whiskey, but it's what you're trying to attain, whether it's marketing as far as packaging and availability, right?
Yeah, the availability is the main driver behind those type of prices. And also, we learned early on it's important to attach a story to each of these offerings.
Sure.
So when you think about the OFCs or the antique collection, the Pappies, all these different offerings that we have, there's a story with each. And like you say, if there's only 500 bottles in the world, and you have one of them, then it's supply and demand, and that's what's driving most of that. But
Yeah, it's got a really high neener factor. You know?
Definitely,
Yeah.
I've experienced some of that, but
I always say people talk. We're not. This isn't a big secondary podcast. Okay, we pretty much get what we might trade sometimes for something, but as far as secondary goes, but people are always like, secondary market's out of control. It's $230 for this bottle, and it's $200. And I'm like, well, you're really not paying any more for the whiskey. You're paying exact price retail, but what you're paying for is somebody to wait in line or somebody to obtain it for you and then deliver it to you. That's what the secondary market, why it's out of control. You're not actually paying more money for the whiskey. You're paying for that service to obtain it.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think most states, unless somebody's doing, for some reason, nefarious things always want to happen, on some of the products, and it's not something we want to touch base on. But at the same time, it's good. You guys have really, really good whiskey that's sought after, and it
Arguably the most popular brand in America.
and we want people to appreciate it. And I think we want it to be fairly priced. We want everybody to be able to afford our whiskeys and bourbons and spirits in general. And so we try to have a little bit of everything. And I think the secret is consistency, quality, and variety, making sure that the customers and consumers appreciate what they're getting.
Well, in Ohio, you guys have done that. I mean, with the control and everything, how it's come through in Ohio, I really think that you guys have done a really good job, down to our lotteries for the really high end stuff. People have a shot at it. You still have to work at it. You know, if you don't want to hang out in line, you know, some people are like, I work and that, you know, but there's Saturday lines and whatever. There's ways to get it, and you guys have the supply, and how the whole thing over the past couple of years, we've been really happy on what you guys, and we feel that's what you're trying to do throughout the country.
Definitely, we are trying, and we're putting more out again with the expansion that'll hit the shelves in 6 or 7 years, but and there was a step change when that happened, so we'll see that as time moves forward. But every year we've made more and more, and it's been shipping out, and you know, luckily for us, we've had more demand. Also, we appreciate that, and we're planning on it. I always ask people, in 2048, will you sign up for a bottle? Because we've already made the juice.
If I'm alive.
Yeah.
We've already made that juice for that brand, and you know, so most people won't sign up. So that's the risk that we're taking. You know?
Well, absolutely.
Now, if you need people to sign up, we're here. So,
There is very few industries
nobody's gonna do that.
put forth the effort that the bourbon industry does to get a reward. Some maybe
down the road.
Well, and that's if, you know, and like I think it's always amazing when you go to on a tour and they talk about, you know, the angel share, and we got this great 15-year-old barrel, and now there's less than 10 bottles in it.
Right.
You know, so
Prohibition was only 13 years long, right? When you think about it, it's probably right at the point when all the stuff that had been distilled and had been aging was about used up, besides the people like you guys, which were, you know, medicinally distilling. But that's about that. Was all of a sudden the judges and all the lawyers, they couldn't get the bourbon anymore, so they said, "Well, time to get rid of this. We need to start making more."
I think you're right about that.
Yeah, it wasn't that this country stopped drinking, was it?
No, they didn't stop.
Nope.
So talk about the bottle with your name on it, because I think that's something that we talk about bourbon, but we will probably all agree in this room, and vodka is not my choice, but women like it. It mixes great with a lot of drinks.
A lot of men like it.
But
like 33% of the public.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's the number one selling.
But your vodka is way better than, and in Ohio we drink, you know, whatever brands it is, but it is just has it's drinkable by itself, which I think most vodka I feel like has to be in a Red Bull, a cranberry, whatever it is.
A Red Bull.
Red Bull and
That's
vodka.
nasty.
I'll tell you right now, if you take a chilled glass out of the freezer and pour that vodka in it, you can sip it just like a nice bourbon. And that is with all vodkas. They're all a little bit different, just like the bourbons. But we designed this vodka to be that way, so you can drink it neat and enjoy it. And we wanted it to be kind of a flagship for our distillery. We had the equipment, we have the ability to do it, so we might as well. So you say you don't drink the vodka, but we know somebody probably in your family or one of your friends does drink.
Exactly, and that's the thing.
So if you were going to have one on the shelf, we want you to get this one. Because it's one of our brands.
It's on my shelf.
You blocked it, but he bought the big bottle because he was with his girlfriend, and she's got a picture.
Yeah.
She's like, "Where's that bottle?" He goes, "I never bought that." And then all of a sudden, she shows him a picture, and then he searched around about it. But
which is precisely why we started making it. So we wanted to have something to offer those people that might not drink just bourbon all the time, and we wanted to, with my name on it, we're going to make sure it tastes good, obviously.
It is the one that I drank that actually can be sipped. It's not.
Can you? So I had it today, and I'm not a huge vodka fan, but I'll taste. I dislike gin, but I'll taste them. But that seemed different even from when I've tasted it the other in the past. Have you altered it at all, or is it still the same?
It's still the same. We haven't changed it.
It must have been I'm having a good taste.
Yeah,
that's just how it works, right?
But it's 10 times. We did everything a little bit different. We made it kind of complicated. We have a couple different recipes, We do 82 proof in the bottle, 10 times distilled, and we design it to be, a nice, delicate, sweet finish. And it's the idea, like you say, is you can drink it neat, of course, if you want to put it in cocktails. It's affordable,
Yeah.
like 18
Oh, yeah.
or whatever.
Do you take it off the still just as high as regular, like
Yeah, it's
higher level?
off the still. It comes off at 190,
Okay.
or whatever.
Okay.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. So we wanted to talk about the peat finished bourbon, or not finished, the peated bourbon. So how did that come about?
Well, the idea is that, some people like to drink the Scotch, right? And the idea, we didn't have anything utilizing peat, and we wanted to, try that. We wanted to implement some of the same processes we do for the bourbons, and then substitute the peated barley with the recipe. And we wanted to see if it would carry through with our distillation. And we didn't want to make it overpowering, but just a hint. And I think it worked out to be what we expected, and came out with that nice little hint of smokiness, and it was part of our experimental collection. And we've done 26 of those since we started in 2006. Started releasing them. Our first experiment was in 1995. We did some finishes and different things, but since then, we've focused on traditional style experiments here at Buffalo Trace, and then things like finishes and things we can use at one of our other distilleries. So, but this one was a straight up recipe change, and then use the same techniques as our bourbon, and then see where we ended up. And we were real happy with it. We liked it. We wanted people to expect it. That's why we labeled it that way, because it's not a traditional, real traditional, bourbon, but had that hint.
So you did a separate mash bill for that.
Yep.
So okay, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We added the peated barley
Okay.
into the recipe.
Okay. So where did you source your peat?
Well, we bought the peated malted barley.
Okay.
We bought that, so it was we didn't make that.
But was it locally in the United States, or did you buy it from Scotland?
We did buy it from it came over from Germany.
Germany. Okay.
Germany.
Yeah, we were at a place, I think Thornton,
Yeah.
and they did they actually were able to do the bar. They harvested peat from Illinois.
Oh, okay.
It was near
Didn't
the
know
river.
there was peat in Illinois.
Didn't know that either.
Yeah, so that was interesting. But the results that they had have to be similar. I really think it adds when you're not
It's another dimension.
right.
Mhm.
And if it's being done with, like you were doing it with you didn't want to overdo it, but you probably had different levels or whatever, you pushing it.
Yeah, you can measure that, of course, but we wanted just to have the hint, and I think it was successful in that. But
Yeah, I got to figure out how to taste it.
I would recommend tasting it neat, just to be able to pick that out and then drink it however you like it.
Yeah, it's just finding it.
Oh, finding it.
That's
That's the
Finding
challenge.
it is the fun
Yeah, it's
part.
limited. We did a small.
Oh yeah, that's one thing. But if you at sometimes bars or whatever, you can get a pour, and you got to make the decisions when you're going to spend the money. That sounds like it's worth it.
Spend the money. You can't take it
I
with
think
you.
it's worth tasting. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Do you got anything?
No,
How about you?
what about Andy?
Yeah.
Is it Silent
Silent Bob.
Yeah, Silent Bob.
He's not.
Silent Bob?
Yeah.
I guess I do too. So I'm kind of curious to see what your take is on this, because I'm kind of a purist. If something's good and it's not broke, we don't need to fix it. I mean, you can tweak it, and certainly there have been whiskey companies, including some from where we're from, that have said we can speed up the aging process with pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That's BS.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And so now you have this unique opportunity where you have basically created a laboratory in the form of a rickhouse.
mm-hmm.
And I actually know of somebody out west that is producing a bourbon, and they're artificially changing temperatures to make the wood cycle, so to speak. That's their story, right? Turn the heat up real high, take it down low, and 10 days high, 10 days low, and we're going to get 10 years worth of aging in a single year. Yeah. Again, there's something about nature that we just can't replicate, right? Time cannot be replicated. Yeah. So, I mean, what's your spin on are you tempted? Are you tempted in Warehouse X to take a floor and start, playing with the thermostat every 2 days, or, and what's your take on people that say you can fake Mother Nature?
So we have learned that lesson through our experimental program and other things, but we've learned the lesson, just like you said, you can't cheat Father Time or Mother Nature. You just are leaving out one important ingredient that you can't replicate. And then the other fact of that is, let's say you could, and you went into the liquor store or the bar, let's say a bar, and you belly up to the bar, and there's 2 bottles on the shelf, and one of them says made in 3 months, but tastes like a 20-year-old. And then you've got one on to the left that was aged for 20 years in a warehouse. Which one would you pick? You're going to pick the traditional one.
What does she look like?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But you're going to pick the traditional one because you know what they expect.
Right.
You appreciate the work and effort that went into that 20-year-old whiskey. You're going to pick that. So now you might try the one on the right as a kind of just to see what it tastes like, but you're not going to go back to that.
No.
So we know that long term, that's not the solution to our industry. And we also agree with you that you can't cheat and make it taste exactly the same. We've proven that time and time again. When you say attempt, we've done it just to understand it. So we know for sure that you can change the temperatures and change that whiskey, but what's going to happen, you're going to get the color, but you're leaving out Father Time. And you're not going to get the extracts through time from that barrel. Even though you force it through, there's some that has to come through based on time. And you can't leave that out.
You can artificially age it, but you can't give it the experience.
Yeah, that's right.
So it doesn't have the wisdom, so to speak, right?
Well, actually, what
we've proven it.
Wow.
But you can do what you do when you heat up in the wintertime, you warm up the warehouses with the steam.
Mm-hmm.
You still include time. So when you do what you're not trying to get it out in 3 months, you're still doing the 6-7 years. You have
Still
time there.
maturation.
Yeah.
But that's where these bourbons start to become where what Taylor did with the steam. That's where you get that more caramel or more richness out of it because of the fact that you're not speeding up time. Nobody can actually do that. But the amount of stuff that happened to it in that process added into nature is where you get the quality.
But the reason we do that is because we're here in Kentucky. If we would do the same process with the heat in Texas, for example, or somewhere south, you're going to get a whole different product that's not proper. So you have to adjust what you're doing based on the environment.
Right.
But if we say anticipated use, so if we know something's going to be 10 years old, then we have to make sure it's aged properly for 10 years to get that balance of aging characteristics with time.
Yeah.
So in
experience.
Texas, they should be putting air conditioning in their brick houses so they can make it a little bit colder instead of always summer.
Yeah, because they don't get a good cycle.
I mean,
humidifiers.
I mean,
but you can do it.
No,
they've proven they can do it.
Now, when you're aging in these brick houses, we also mentioned is that you keep on a level of a chemistry level. You are analyzing the whiskey as it ages, comparing it to the other brick houses also, right?
Oh yeah,
you've gotten that detail.
Oh, absolutely. Every floor has a fingerprint based on anticipated use, and we analyze it not only just with our taste, but analytically. We look at every single floor we have. So.
This is just so exciting.
Okay, so I have a question because I hear this all the time throughout the bourbon community. So of course the benchmark line exists, and in Ohio we only had benchmark 8, and still really that's what you see. But then small batch, single barrel, barrel proof, top floor come out, And all the rumors start about, well, that's Blanton's that didn't make it to Blanton's. All those things.
Oh yeah. Weller 12 is the Van Winkle reject.
So not that you have to tell us everything because we don't, but what brought the Benchmark line into the lineup? Why was it brought when, obviously a 6 to 7 year old Buffalo Trace for $23.99, I think in Ohio, already had a good stance. What made that become a thing?
Well, it is popular right now to have varieties and different varieties of the original label. And for us, we couldn't do that with our older inventory because we didn't have the inventory. So we were able to design a Benchmark at a younger age. It's only a 4-year-old product. And we were able to do that. So Benchmark doesn't make it to Blanton because it's only a 4-year-old
right.
product. And but we were able to deliver variety that people are wanting because barrel strength and all the different. We actually have a couple of flavors, I think, in that. But that's the idea behind it is we're able to do that, with a younger bourbon.
So the Benchmark line truly, just because of what it is the younger line of the group.
Yep.
Whereas pretty much here, 6 years and up.
Correct. Yeah, these are all older. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I had E.H. Taylor single barrel, and I try and explain single barrels they're not all winners for that person. What might not be a winner for you would be a winner for somebody else. But I had a Taylor single barrel, and I've had multiple that it wasn't for me. And then I got the single barrel Benchmark and put the two together. And the Benchmark at 4 years was a really good barrel. And that's the kind of thing that can happen with single barrels. Sure. I mean, that's why they're single barrels.
Yeah. And we do it all the time. Of course, we have a single barrel select program, and people come in and
I keep trying.
We'll have 3 or 4 barrels.
I do. I've been trying for years.
Yeah, it's a little different this year. They're drawing them out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then you get another ticket the next time, so we feel like we actually have a shot.
Yeah. Well, you do have a shot, whatever the ratio is. But on the single barrels, if there's 4 there, then some people will prefer one over the other, and we do it all the time. And when liquor stores or retail shops pick their own barrel, they're doing that based on their personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, they're all pretty good. We pre-approve them when they go in. So we know they're all good, but they're all just slightly a little bit different. And that's the fun of the single barrel.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean,
I'm sorry, Jeff.
The Buffalo Trace, I've had some of your single barrel Buffalo Traces that were so sugary, so caramel, I mean, it was just like, well, I need to go down and get a case of that,
Yeah.
And then it's like, then you're like, well, now Buffalo Trace has been wrecked for me forever because it's so good. But yeah, that's that program. Now I always look at when we do single barrel picks is for complexity.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, then there's complexity with flavor profile that matches, and then there's complexity which is completely different from the flavor profile. So there's so much to do in a single barrel. It's a very exciting process, especially if you get to do it with you.
Yeah, that's fun to do. I'm glad to help with that. But a lot of times people will select them because they're a little different.
Yeah.
And they're not the standard, as much standard. We like to be as consistent as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time that if you're going to go for a single barrel or you find a single barrel you really love, right, and it's at the ABC store, just pick one. You need to keep shopping there because chances are if you like that person picked that profile because that's what they liked, right?
That's true.
So your palate and their palate matches.
That's true.
If you go somewhere and you drink a single barrel and you hate it, stop shopping there.
Well, the opposite is if you taste it and don't like it, then you better go somewhere else.
Right, because that person's palate, they're going to keep picking what they like, right?
That happened to me with wine. I asked the guy, because I don't drink a lot of wine.
Why would you? Get bourbon.
Yeah, pick me out good, because I have friends that drink wine, just like he has friends that drink vodka.
Yeah.
Actually, CT.
We got to change. We got to get different friends.
But anyway, I said, pick me out a good wine there, and he picked one out, and I hated it. It was terrible, so I never went back. Go somewhere else.
Most of CT's friends are actually imaginary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's easy to buy them around.
Yeah.
Well, our daughter makes wine out
Yeah.
of Portland, and so
Oh, okay.
she knows what I like. So she'll say, "Oh, Mom, you'll really like this one." She knows I like the oakier Chardonnays.
Yeah, that's what I
Or
like.
the creamier,
Yeah.
more apricots, more of
Yeah.
the warmer fruits rather than the
Yeah.
dry ones. So anyway.
As a sommelier, and then she's getting into winemaking, I keep trying to get her into the bourbon aspect,
Yeah.
saying you got to get in this because
Yeah.
her
She works in a tasting room. They
Well,
give you bourbon there.
but when she tastes something, she remembers what it tastes like, and she can remember all the flavor
The
notes.
notes, yeah.
So
She's kind of a
it's
genius.
like when it comes to that, she remembers it. Whereas most people, when they're tasting it, they're trying to figure out what they're tasting. They figure it out, but then they drink 2 more things, and then they.
Yeah. No, that's good. She has that memory. That's
Yeah. So, but I am trying to get her into the whiskey in the bourbon industry because we know a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, you can know both.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. So, anything else you want to add in?
I think you did good.
Thank you.
So I have a kind of a final question. So,
Buffalo Trace.
Son of a bitch, that's the answer.
Five on that.
Who knew? So you not only have a great palate, but you're psychic.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. I've been to Buffalo Trace so many times I can't count. I can't count. And I've been on all the tours and I've heard all the history. I feel like I could almost be a guide, right? And you look at some of the greats that have kind of honored the Hallowed halls here. And, you can't talk about Elmer T. Lee without saying he was the first to bring Blanton single barrel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm curious, 50 years from now, when somebody is talking about Harlan Wheatley, what is it you hope? Because you've had so much here. I mean, the expansion, doubling the size, the warehouses, obviously the vodka. I mean, what's the one thing you hope you're remembered for?
I think, I've thought about some, but, hopefully I got a few.
Oh, don't
years
kid
left.
us. Everybody thinks about their
Yeah.
legacy.
I think my legacy should be that, we took a bourbon distillery up to the next level. And while we did it, we were consistent and delivered really good whiskey. It's as simple as that. And, we've more than doubled the capacity of the distillery and taken us up to the max. This is a max. It's never going to be any bigger than it is now. And so we're able to transition that into that without sacrificing a drop of quality, and we never will. So focused on quality and consistency and delivering the volumes, So hopefully, you have to look at that part of it. But
So what one product do you think obviously the vodka bears your name while you're still here.
yeah,
That's tough, right? But what's that one
well,
thing
Buffalo started from 0 cases, so we were able to see that become global now. That's a big accomplishment for us as a company, and we're excited about all the brands. Really, we're just kind of putting them on the market.
I agree. I'm excited about all the brands. I
Under
drink them often.
they went from brands on the shelf to something that
Even
people want to obtain
Yeah.
all the time, and they can't get enough.
right.
You're recognized by people who barely know anything about whiskey because, if you go to any whiskey store and you ask the person behind the counter what they hate the most, it's when someone comes in and asks them if they have Blanton's. They get
The phone calls
Do you have
8,
Blanton's?
10, 12 times a day.
Moms come in with husbands, have no idea. Do you have Blanton's?
Yeah.
Everybody, that's the one question. So, and you got to be proud of that because people want something that you guys are putting out, and you've taken it to that level.
Yeah, I do think it's really important for people to understand it's a team. We have one heck of a team here, and we've got about 700 people here now, which is craziness. We had 50 when I started, so we've changed the face of the place, and everyone is pulling in the same direction. So all this happened because of this great team we have. I think it's a legacy that will continue because of all these people.
In how big of a role you play in it, I don't know, but the overall facility, the visitor experience, I guess is a good way to put it, is by far one of the best. I mean,
By far.
For people, I see people, and I come down almost every Friday, and I'm down, and I see people from every state, and this is Disney World to most adults that aren't bringing their kids. Some bring their kids, but most of them are not. But this is that they get this is something where they just enjoy it, and I think that creation, along with the product, has made it to where it is what it is. People want to be around it. They want to see the history. They want to see a rick house that's full of barrels that's been there for God knows how long.
Yeah.
That's important, I think.
And I think most of that stems from all 700 people that work here are very proud of what they do. And they're excited about sharing, the experiences and all the products that we're making. And then,
well, they're happy.
Yeah.
Everybody you talk to has got a smile on their face. There is not a person yet.
And they haven't been drinking.
Exactly. How is that working?
Wait, so you come down every Friday? How many aliases do you have? How many fake IDs are we talking about here?
Hey, I will tell you a funny story.
Hey, Fritz.
Real quick funny story. Last year, there was a period of time I came down 6 to 8 weeks in a row. It was 8 weeks. 8 weeks in a row, had not had a break. And every Friday, and all I wanted was a Blanton's.
Yeah.
I couldn't get one. Friday, I get down here, Weller Green. Next Friday, Weller Green. E.H. Taylor, maybe. It didn't happen until I went to the Kroger down the road, and I got one there.
Had it the whole time.
8 weeks later, I got it there. And then finally, it was like the Fridays opened up, and we started seeing some Blantons. But that hunt was kind of what was really cool about it. But at the whole time, you're learning more about the industry. You're learning more about the people. You talk to this person, you talk to that person, and you learn so much about it that, I mean, honestly, it's hard not to want to be involved in it. It's a very positive environment.
We're lucky enough we gave 500,000 people a tour last year.
Wow.
And,
With COVID.
Yeah.
With COVID.
That's right. It was right after COVID.
And it's like he says, it's like it's the free Disneyland.
Yeah.
Because when you come here, you get a tour, and there's no expense. You just have to
and the
make
tasting.
sure you book it. That's the
and a bourbon ball.
I enjoy the addition of the wood shop.
Yes.
I like stopping down there and seeing those guys.
Yeah, actually, we were down there last time. Those guys were great.
Yeah, it was kind of a natural extension. We have so many barrels and so much wood available that it's a
And you're starting to see their product trickle into the gift shop, which is even better for the visitor experience.
The only thing I had against the gift shop is they never had triple XLs, but I came down this time and there's triple XLs of everything.
Maybe they were trying to tell you something.
And I'm like, wait a second, there's a triple. She's like, you better stop.
The problem is they're skinny fit, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, you put me in a 2X and I look like a sausage.
Do something about it. We got a campaign against that skinny fit.
I'm telling you.
No, the property is beautiful.
Yes,
and
It is.
that picture doesn't even do it justice, but it really is gorgeous.
And everybody here is so
And-
welcoming.
It's a great. So that I think has as much to do with, this obviously is a huge factor, but the whole experience is there. I mean, it's just like a restaurant. If the food's great, but the environment's terrible, you're not going back.
Don't miss it if you come down to visit.
Yeah, my wife would say it's made with love.
It is maybe. You're right about that.
All right, everybody.
We'll let that die.
I'll let you say that.
All right, we're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys, www.scotchybourbonboys.com. If you get a chance to come down to Buffalo Trace, you absolutely have to. It's a stop that needs to be made anytime you're close to this part of Kentucky. So,
and the tours usually sell out, or they don't sell out, but they book up.
Months in advance.
So, but
Or get here early in the morning.
if you're here first thing, there's usually a cancellation or two
on a Friday,
and you can walk on, so to speak. And that's the way I've done it. I've taken every tour here as a walk on.
Also, it seems like the limits are off, and so the tours are bigger. We noticed that today, so that should help as far as people booking more people. All right. So Great
Yeah.
podcast, guys.
Harlan, thank you so much for
Yeah,
taking
thank
time.
you. Appreciate you. We know how busy you are.
Thank you.
All right, remember, good bourbon equals good friends and good times. Make sure that you drink responsibly, don't drink and drive, and live your life dangerously. Till next time.
Carl's
Little
gonna take us
Stevo's
out.
going on.
Yeah.
Take us out. Here we go.
Riders on.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
It's such a cheery song.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Let's go! Halftime of the football game.
And he doesn't say it once or twice. I mean, it's there. We got your point, brother.
So will you sign a couple things for us before that? And then this is for you. I brought one down. It's just
Hey, Scotchy Bourbon Boys fans, this is Alan Bishop, Indiana's alchemist of the Black Forest. So I'm tuning in here today to tell you all about the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute channel on YouTube. If you're at all interested in the art of distilling, whether it be home distilling or professional distilling, and the intense geekery that goes into that process, then check out the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute on YouTube. I promise you're going to learn something you didn't know before about the arts.